Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, the Derek Carr saga takes another twist. Positive for him, negative for the Raiders. Plus your calls and texts coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, February 1st, 2023.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms. That includes YouTube. Thanks to my man, Ari, my tag team partner. He makes everything go. You can find Ari on Twitter at Ari Produces. Make sure we're up each and every day. Do appreciate anyone who checks in and checks out the page, whether it's for 2 minutes, 22 minutes, 32 minutes. If you like it, if you dislike it, whatever the case may be, you leave a comment. That's cool too. But if you like it, feel free to hit subscribe. Let's my man Ari know that he's doing a really good job. Today's edition of the Locked On Raider podcast is brought to you by the Ultimate Football GM. If you ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise, this game is for you. If you thought about being Dave Ziegler, this game is for you. You want to download the game? Go ahead and visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. All listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast will get 100% free boost to their franchise when they use the promo code Locked On. It's all caps. Locked On. You can find it in the game store. Again, promo code Locked On in all caps. I'll tell you a lot more about them later on in the show. But man, speaking of Dave Ziegler and decisions he's got to make, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We all know the February 15th date that, well, we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with quarterback Derek Carr, right? Are they going to release him? Are they going to trade him? You know, is he going to have a new team? Whatever is going to happen. We know something's going to happen, and it has to happen by February 15th. Well, that date may have just got sped up for all we know. Early on Tuesday, the news rolled out. First, Derek Carr actually tweeted and said, well, maybe this invitation got lost in the mail from past seasons, but I'm going back to Pro Bowl number 4. See you soon, Vegas. Again, that's Derek Carr on Twitter. So, yes, Derek Carr is a Pro Bowler for the 4th time in his career. Congratulations to Derek Carr. That's great for him. Not mad at that. It's been very rare, I don't think ever, that we've seen a Pro Bowl quarterback either get released or even traded in the offseason. But that's going to be the case when it comes to Derek Carr. But with that being said, as good as it is for Derek Carr, that has definitely put the Raiders in a position. Derek Carr cannot be on the roster and get injured before February 15th, right? I mean, because if he's on the roster and gets injured, then all of a sudden the Raiders have to pay him his money. That's why they sat him down for the final 2 games of the regular season. They didn't want to take that chance. They were ready to move on from him, and so they sat him down so he wouldn't get injured. He left the facility, didn't come back. He wasn't walking around anywhere. You know, there was just no chances being taken. So, well, here you go. Now he's in that situation where maybe he goes to Allegiant Stadium, he's in the Pro Bowl, and he gets hurt. So what happens then? A lot of people hit me up on Twitter. A lot of people hit Vinny Bonsignore up on Twitter. We're asking us, what happens if Carr gets hurt? What happens if Carr gets hurt? He's still a member of the Raiders until he's not, right? Well, Vinny found in the CBA, he said, per Article 38, and this is something he tweeted out, sections A and B of the CBA, if Derek Carr gets seriously hurt in the Pro Bowl, the Raiders would have to pay his 2023 salary in full. Again, that's Vinny on Twitter. And if you actually want to hear exactly what it says, word for word in the CBA, Section 4 under injury, Part A, in the event a player is injured in a Pro Bowl game or practice, and as a direct result of such injury, the player is unable to perform in any regular season game in the immediately following NFL season, he shall be deemed an injured player for the purpose of this article. If at this Pro Bowl, the injury and an injured player has an NFL player contract for the immediately following NFL season, the player will be paid by his club the weekly installments of his salary covering the games missed. Meaning, if he has a contract, Derek Carr does. He has a contract with the Raiders. If he goes into the Pro Bowl and somehow even a non-contact ACL injury or a non-contact Achilles injury or something that's going to keep him out for the season or a long part of the season, the Raiders would be on the hook to pay that salary. So now what do? Right? I mean, Dave Ziegler could sit there and hold his breath and cross his fingers and hope nothing bad happens and Derek Carr is healthy, goes in there, plays, represents the Raiders, and calls it a day. Or he could flat out release him. I don't see a trade coming anytime between now and the weekend. I don't see them agreeing to a trade. So there's a good chance that what we were waiting for, February 15th, is going to come before this weekend. The Pro Bowl is Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. I would not be shocked, and this is just my gut feeling. This is just me talking from what I feel like could possibly happen, that Derek Carr is going to get moved on from. They're just going to flat out release him, which is going to be, again, bizarre to see a guy that just made the Pro Bowl get released. But I'll say this, and as much as I hate it about the Pro Bowl, it feels like it's really being watered down, right? And that's not a slight to Derek Carr at all. I mean, he did his thing. The Raiders put out a statement, as they do for every Pro Bowler. Matter of fact, they said Derek Carr has been named to the 2023 Pro Bowl. The NFL and the Raiders announced on Tuesday. Carr, who will be appearing in his fourth Pro Bowl, is replacing Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. He joins teammates Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, Josh Jacobs, A.J. Cole as Raider Pro Bowlers, giving the team 5 selections to the annual All-Star Game being hosted at Allegiant Stadium. This marks the 26th time in franchise history that 5 or more Raider players have been named to the Pro Bowl. It goes on to talk about his stats in 2022. Started 15 games, completed 305 of 502 passes for 3,522 yards with 24 touchdowns and a passer rating of 86.3. His 24 passing touchdowns ranked 12th in the NFL, while his 10 touchdown passes for 30 or more yards ranked first in the league. That was a statement put out by the Raiders. It's funny, I tweeted out that statement, and people were like, oh, who decided to slight Derek Carr, and why are they throwing shade at him? It sounds like a pretty shady statement. I don't understand what was shady about it. You know, people were talking about, well, his touchdown passes ranked 12th in the NFL. They did, right? He threw 24 passing touchdowns. It did rank 12th in the NFL. They also said his 10 touchdown passes for 30 or more yards ranked first. So I never understood where the slight was. I never understood where, you know, the disrespect to Derek Carr was, but I know that that name is such a sensitive subject that someone will find something disrespectful in everything said about DC. I didn't find anything disrespectful. I think it really put the Raiders in a weird position, knowing that they've got to put a statement out about him, knowing that they're moving on from him, but yet he's a member of the team still. And so they're going to, of course, claim him as, well, their 5th Pro Bowler, but just kind of like an awkward situation. Not that the NFL cares about awkward situations, right? They love the drama. So there you go. But I just think that the Pro Bowl is being watered down because Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl. He was actually announced as a Pro Bowl quarterback before Derek Carr even got, announced as a Pro Bowl quarterback. And Tyler Huntley only played in like 5 or 6 games. You know, he filled in for Lamar Jackson. He didn't play every game this season. And I know DC didn't either, but he played 15 out of 17. Lamar played way more games than Tyler Huntley played. So it was kind of bizarre to see Tyler Huntley get named to the Pro Bowl. And again, not throwing shade at him. It's good for anybody who makes a Pro Bowl. It's great for their contracts, great for their incentives that they get in their contracts. But it just seems like it's getting a little bit watered down with the people that end up making the Pro Bowl. So who knows what's going to happen, but the Raiders have some tough decisions on their hands. I think we're going to find or hear a resolution sooner rather than later, more likely probably before this weekend happens. So stay tuned, buckle up, because it's not going to end just yet. But that wasn't the biggest news that happened as far as I'm concerned on Tuesday. Adam Schefter later on Tuesday afternoon tweeted out that Saints and Broncos are finalizing compensation in return for Super Bowl winning head coach Sean Payton. This clears the way for Payton to sign with the Broncos to become Denver's head coach, and so Payton is expected to head to Denver as its next HC. The Saints and Broncos just finalized a deal on compensation, and sources say New Orleans gets a first-rounder, an early pick, likely a second-rounder, but also gives a pick back. Complex deal, but now done. Sean Payton will be the Broncos coach. So the first little statement comes from Adam Schefter. The second one about the compensation comes from Ian Rappaport. And man, oh man, there you go. Done deal records, right? Sean Payton and Russell Wilson in Denver. So now all of a sudden you look at the AFC West and the dynamics of the AFC West. You look at the quarterbacks in the AFC West. You look at the head coaches in the AFC West. And, man, I just think that the heat just got turned up a lot. Andy Reid has the Lombardi. He's playing for another one, or his team's playing for another one on the 12th. Sean Payton heads to the AFC West, going to Denver. He has a Lombardi as a head coach. Josh McDaniels does not have a Lombardi as a head coach and has a 6-11 record as the Raiders head coach. And then Brandon Staley choked it away in the playoffs this past year as the Chargers dropped to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I still look at Brandon Staley as the 4th best head coach in the AFC West, but his team did make the playoffs where the Raiders did not. So there's still that debate, really, you could say. You could actually say Brandon Staley is the 3rd best because he has made the playoffs where Josh McDaniels only won 6 games. And I really can't argue with that. I just think that Josh McDaniels is better when it comes to play calling. He's more, he's more creative. Let's put it like that. I think he's better at the X's and O's part than Brandon Staley is. But, again, Brandon Staley made the playoffs where Josh McDaniels didn't. So What do the Raiders do as a counter move? I think Russell Wilson and the Broncos are going to be a lot better. They already have a really good defense. You saw what Sean Payton was able to do with Drew Brees. He was already a good quarterback, but when he went to New Orleans, all of a sudden he really ratcheted things up and made him a lot better, right? I mean, that's just the facts. I had people telling me that Sean Payton was overrated, wasn't that good of a head coach. I find that to be silly. You know, there's plenty of Raider fans that wanted Sean Payton to be the Raiders head coach, and he wasn't available. They got Josh McDaniels. They got Dave Ziegler, right? I still think that that's a good 1-2 punch, but they've got to prove it. So I think there's a lot more pressure now. I don't know what the Raiders are going to do. Oh, by the way, they don't have a quarterback. They need to fix their defense still, and they need to continue to improve their offensive line. So there's a lot of question marks when it comes to the Silver and Black and what they're going to do. But all of a sudden you look at the AFC West and you're like, whoa. You've got Patrick Mahomes. You've got Justin Herbert. You've got Russell Wilson. You've got Andy Reid. Brandon Staley is with Herbert, so there's that. Kellen Moore, though, is the offensive coordinator, so he gets a better quarterback to work with than Dak Prescott, so that can help out the Chargers offense. And then you've got whoever the quarterback's going to be for the Raiders, none of us know. It could be a veteran. It could be a rookie. I mean, we just don't know. So, man, there's a lot of work that I believe the Raiders have to do in finding their quarterback and getting this team to where it needs to go. But the AFC West, I know we said it all last offseason, it was going to be the best division in football. I think it's going to be a nasty division. I really do think what maybe we thought a season ago is going to actually rear its ugly head this upcoming year, depending on what the Raiders are able to do and how good that division is going to be. I feel like it has an opportunity to be really, really good. So about that quarterback position, got hit up on Twitter by my guy Jay Will, and he really wants to know what I want to see the Raiders do at the quarterback position, because he said I really haven't said what I want, and it's because there's been so many questions. I have so many questions, and I don't have a bunch of answers, but I'll roll out a few scenarios. We'll talk about the quarterback position, A, B, C, D, E, whatever it is. Roll it out. We'll do that in segment number 2 after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is the Ultimate Football GM. It is your time to compete. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. You'll manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through seasons, lead your team to glory, trying to build a dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise. You got to hire the right coaches and coordinators. You got to trade players, navigate your franchise through free agency and the draft, plus all the ups and downs of a season. You know how that goes. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free. You can play it offline, play on the go as you want and when you want to. And we've even created the Locked On League for you to compete against Locked On fans all over the world. Can you be the ultimate Locked On Football GM? Choose the Locked On League in the app to join. Can you create a football dynasty? You can. I know you can. All listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast will get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. It's all caps. It's all one word. It's in the game store. It's Locked On, all in caps, all one word. So make sure you check it out today. You want to download the game? Visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to kind of throw some scenarios at you for the quarterback position. And this all came because my man Jay Will sent me a tweet asking about the quarterback position. He said, Q, I'm listening to your podcast right now, and here's my question. What do you want the Raiders to do? Not draft a quarterback. I get building up and get a veteran. Fast forward to next year, and now the Raiders can't get Caleb. What now? That's from my guy Jay Will, and I do appreciate the tweet, and there's a bunch of different scenarios here. Right? I've tried to lay it out and really think about it and be smart and not try to just jump and say, okay, go do this, go do that. Like, I don't want to be hasty. I want to think about it and really think about it, because I think that Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly and Josh McDaniels, they really need to be careful and think about this. This is a huge decision. One, they're picking in the top 10. They're at number 7 right now. If everything goes right, they're not picking in the top 10 next year. So you got to take that into account, right? Are they going to get an opportunity to get one of these big-time quarterbacks that could be their quarterback of the future? Do they believe one of these big-time quarterbacks could be their quarterback of the future? So that's one scenario there. But if it came to me in best-case scenario, and this is just the best-case scenario, and I don't think this is really going to happen because I don't think that one of these elements is going to be there, I would say the Raiders sign Brady as a free agent and then draft C.J. Stroud at number 7. But I say it's most likely not going to happen because I don't think C.J. Stroud is going to be there at 7. And if you trade up, You trade up to 3, you're giving up a lot of draft capital. And I do believe that C.J. Stroud will be the second quarterback taken. I think Bryce Young goes first, C.J. Stroud goes second. There's teams that need quarterbacks, right? And who knows what the Bears are going to do. They're a wild card. They might stick with Justin Fields. They might decide to trade him and go get a quarterback. But Houston definitely needs a quarterback. The Colts need a quarterback. Maybe Seattle even picks a quarterback. They're sitting there at number 5. They could potentially go get a quarterback. So there's different teams, and you never know who's going to trade up. Carolina needs a quarterback. Maybe they trade up. Maybe they decide, you know what, Frank Reich sees his guy that he wants. He trades up. There's so many scenarios, but I think option A for me would just be get Tom Brady as a free agent, sign him, let him cook in Las Vegas for at least a year, maybe even 2, and let C.J. Stroud grow behind him. I think that would be the best case scenario. And it's funny, a lot of Raider Nation is like, no, I don't want Tom Brady. No, I don't want Tom Brady. No, I don't want Tom Brady. You know who wouldn't mind playing with Tom Brady? Mad Max Crosby. He was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and I believe that drops sometime today with Will Compton and Taylor Lewan, and they asked him about the quarterback position. You'll hear Taylor Lewan ask him, and you'll hear Max Crosby's response and why he has a response where he's okay with Tom Brady. Check this out.
Hypothetically, who do you want to be the quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders?
Who do I want? I would love to have Tom Brady.
Oh, hey.
How I don't know how that could be controversy.
That
It's Tom Brady. Bro.
It's Tom Brady.
for sure.
As a leader, as a player,
As the GOAT.
as the GOAT. Yeah, I would love to play with Tom Brady.
So the thing about it is, as much as Raider Nation have called the radio show, have called the podcast, have tweeted at me, texted at me, and said, no Brady, no Brady, no Brady, can't do it, he's a Patriot, I haven't heard one player in the league that has ever said, I don't want to play with Brady. I mean, have you ever heard one player in the league that say, no, I don't want to play with that guy? Max Crosby didn't. You heard what he said right there. So, as much as I get it when it comes to the Patriot ties and all that, look, if the guy can get it done, if he still can prove that he can get it done at a high level, then I'm all good with it. And if he can help bring maybe some extra talent to Vegas because they want to play with Brady as well, I'm good with that. So that's option A. Option B, I'm not a big fan of because you got to give up draft capital. That'd be trading for Aaron Rodgers and then maybe trying to get a later round draft pick as a quarterback and letting them sit and see if you could develop them. Maybe a Hendon Hooker, maybe someone, even a little bit later on in the draft than that. And if it doesn't work, that's okay because it's a later round pick and, either you could trade him off later or it could be a backup. Right. And by the way, sign Jarrett Stidham as the backup. Signs Jarrett Stidham in free agency. Give him about a 3-year deal. Make sure that he's the glorified backup for sure. Right. So it could be Roger. It could be Brady, Stidham, and then C.J. Stroud is learning. Right. That would be great. And then, when Brady's done, maybe it could be C.J. Stroud with Stidham behind him or whatever the case may be. But Stidham signing him, in my opinion, is very important. So scenario B. Rodgers and then a later round quarterback and hope that, that they're able to develop. If not, like I said, it's okay because it's a later round pick. Option C, have Jarrett Stidham start and draft a guy that might take over at some point. So maybe you draft a guy like C.J. Stroud. Maybe they go and get him or get whoever they feel like is their guy. Maybe it's Will Levis. Maybe it's, Anthony Richardson or other. Maybe it's Tanner McKee out of Stanford. But you let Stidham. I'm not real high on Stidham starting just because I don't want to be a victim and I don't want to be a prisoner of the 2-game sample size that we saw. We saw some good from Stidham, but we also saw some backup qualities in Stidham too, right? And so I think, again, he's a really good backup. Give him enough money to keep him around. You know that he knows the system. He's confident and comfortable in it. And if he has to go in there in a pinch, he can at least keep the ship rolling, right? So that would make it comfortable for me. That's scenario C. D, and this is do not do. D stands for do not do. Trade up, get your guy. If you believe he's the guy, you're going to give up a lot of draft capital, and you're not going to be able to build up your team. But if you believe he's your guy, then go for it. The problem is if you do that, most likely he's also starting, week 1. And I don't think that he's going to be ready to start. And again, I say don't do it. You can do it. I just feel like this team is not built up enough. They don't have a defense where it needs to be. Their offensive line is not where it needs to be. They still need some more pieces. So I just don't feel like this team has the good enough team to have it built all the way up and to be able to go trade all the way up like that and feel comfortable. So that's why I say don't do that. And then if you're in position to draft Caleb Williams in 2024, something went terribly wrong with all those scenarios. right? There should be no reason why you're in position to draft Caleb Williams. I just don't think that the Raiders, that's in their cards. Now, I guess the one caveat would be is if they really built up their team this past year and maybe Stidham started and got them through the season and they felt comfortable with their defense, they felt really comfortable with their offensive line, and they pulled the Kansas City Chiefs and traded up really high, knowing that that's going to cost you a lot of draft capital, and went and got Caleb Williams. But I don't see that scenario happen at all. So, honestly, I think that the best case scenario for the Raiders would be just sign Brady in free agency and draft C.J. Stroud as the quarterback that I would draft. He's the one I feel comfortable with out of Bryce Young, Stroud, Levis, and Richardson. I would be comfortable with C.J. Stroud. But that's just me, and that doesn't mean that that's going to be the right answer. That's just the answer I got right now on February 1st. Again, we're going to know if they have a veteran or not by the time the draft comes around, well before the draft comes around. So I think that that'll help in the conversation a little bit later on. But just responding to Jay Will's tweet, that's the best I got for you right now. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here of the Locked On Raiders podcast. And the first one is one that we're very excited about, our new sports betting partner for Locked On. That is FanDuel. They're the #1 sports book in America. And if you're new to FanDuel, even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get the $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I also want to tell you about Built Bar. I've been talking about Built Bar for a very long time, and if you go to Built.com, you can check out all the great flavors that they have. You can check out all the great styles that they have. You want Built Bar Puff? That's got marshmallow. You want granola? They've got the granola bars. You want gluten-free? They've got gluten-free. They've got just about anything for everybody. Chocolate lover, they got you. Coconut lover, they got you. Fruit lover, they got you. I mean, just about anything is everything at Built Bar. And the best thing about it, it tastes great. It's a good snack if you need to, have a little bit of fuel while you're working. And more importantly, it's really good for you, right? Low in calories, low in sugar, high in protein. It's a great taste of protein bar, which you don't find very often. You can go to Built.com. You can use the promo code LOCKEDON15 to save 15% off your order if you want to order online. Shipping is free on all things on the website right now, so you have multiple ways to get your hands on Built Bar. You can do it on the website, Built.com, or you can walk into your local Smith's, your local Sam's Club, and pick up a box, whether a 13 box, a four-pack box, whatever the case may be. Something big, something small, they've got it right there in store for you. So check it out today. Decide what you want. I know one thing, it's going to be a great tasting protein bar, good for you, low in calories, low in sugar, and high in protein. Built Bar is what it is. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Start things off with Jacob in Fresno. He's calling to talk about the player turnover that the Raiders had from the 2021 season to now and shares his thoughts on it. Here he is, Jacob in Fresno.
Thank you, Jacob in Fresno. Listening to your podcast this morning and kind of listening to what you're talking about with how the Eagles have done as far as turning around their program and also how the Chiefs have stayed consistent. And, I forgot what the name of what the caller was that talked about good coaches having the players that are currently on their roster and making them fit their form. And, I get it, that it always happens with teams that bring in their own guys that they're more comfortable with. But I just don't know if there's that much turnover needed to do that. And it's frustrating because, again, last year, or whatever the year was, a playoff team, and then this year 6-11. So it's hard for Raider fans to really accept that and not be angry with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. And of course I'm still not a big fan of how they've handled this season, and I am going to be curious to see what they do. But then it's all going to be just a big gamble and a guess. And but that's with everything. I do hope that we hang on to our first-round draft pick. We go defensive first, either a linebacker or a stud defensive tackle. And I know I've talked about it on your radio show, I'm still a big fan of Hendon Hooker. I think that kid did really well. He only threw a handful of picks while in Tennessee. It was unfortunate the way his season ended because that kid was a Heisman candidate, and I think he would be a steal at the second or third round and possibly be a QB of the future. Just got to see how he rehabs. That's my take on it, and I hope you have a good rest of the week.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. I appreciate you. And as far as the turnover goes, man, that's something that happens, right? I've talked about it quite a bit. It's expected. It wasn't really that much, in my opinion, as far as like key players, right? There's probably going to be more turnover this season than there was last season, right? Carr is big. That's obviously a massive change. That could happen sooner rather than later. But think about it. Zay Jones walked in free agency. They brought in Devontae Adams. Alec Ingold walked in free agency. They brought in Jakob Johnson. They traded Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin. They let Ngakoue go. Even Casey Hayward, he was a free agent. Remember, he walked and went to Atlanta, him and Marcus Mariota. Casey Hayward played in like, 6 games? Mariota ended up getting benched, right? Stidham came in. Obviously, he knew the system better. I mean, look, we could talk about guys that are no longer with the team. Rich Bisaccia, I know he's no longer with the team, and he's up in Green Bay, and he's actually interviewed a couple times with the Colts for their head coaching position. Maybe he gets it, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But every organization always turns over the roster. They really do. Whenever they go in, they always turn over the roster at some point. Sometimes it's gradual, sometimes it's major. I think that this new staff brought in a bunch of guys on one-year deals. And guess what? The last staff, remember Gus Bradley had a bunch of different guys on defense on one-year deals, right? They had Quentin Jefferson. They had Solomon Thomas. They had Kendall Vickers. I mean, there was a bunch of different guys that played for the Raiders in 2021. They were all on one-year deals. They had a ton of guys on one-year deals. When this new staff came in, there was all these guys that didn't have contracts. They only had about 26 roster guys. 26 guys with contracts. They had to go and fill out the roster. So it's not like they got rid of a bunch of guys with contracts. They just moved on from guys that were already free agents and already walking out the door for the most part. This year, I think, is going to be more turnover than what you saw last year. So I don't take a whole lot from that, but I understand when you don't have the record that you had a year before, it's easy for people to say, oh, it was the turnover that got him. Look, if you rather have Zay Jones and Devontae Adams, then that's on you. You know, I'll take Devontae Adams every day of the week and twice on Sunday, and I think most people would as well. Darren Waller's still on the roster. Hunter Renfro's still on the roster, and I think that this last staff, they really expected a lot from those guys this past year, and it didn't happen. So we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe they're bought in. Maybe they're not bought in. Maybe they're not really the fit that they thought they were for what they're trying to do. I don't know, but they're still on the roster, so can't talk about turnover with those guys until they're gone, and then we can analyze the situation then. But thank you so much for that call. I appreciate you. Got a text from Jolly Roger J. He said, Q, you had someone during segment number 3 on Friday who said the Raiders couldn't have won the playoff game against the Bengals last January, and respectfully, I couldn't disagree more. First of all, the Bengals won by only 7 with the Raiders breathing down their neck in the red zone with under a minute to play. I also could point to 5 bad luck plays in that game where if fortune went to the silver and black on just one of those, we probably win. Let's start with the phantom whistle from the refs where our D tackle stops short of hitting Burrow to avoid a late hit and our safety pulls up on his coverage thanks to the whistle, and the result was a Bengals touchdown. Or the play where Foster Moreau uncharacteristically misses his block, triggering a blindside strip sack resulting in a Bengals score. So when I hear a narrative that we had no chance in that game or wouldn't have been dangerous in last year's playoffs, I can't let that slide. We were a playoff-ready team last year, which makes me sick that we have dismantled in 1 year so much of what was working. Respectfully, Jolly Roger J. Thank you for the text. I do appreciate you. And the phantom call, I got to choose my words carefully here. The phantom whistle, that was bad. That I'll give you that, no doubt. That was bad, and I don't understand why that was allowed to go on, right? That phantom whistle was clearly there. Everyone heard it. That didn't make any sense. We saw this past weekend with Kansas City when there were some plays that weren't supposed to happen or did happen. Basically, they did it over, right? So there's that. So I'll give you that. But Foster Moreau uncharacteristically missing a block, he did. He missed a block. It triggered a strip sack. That's called football. That happens in plays. Like, that's what defenders are supposed to do, is make guys miss their block, right? I mean, like how can you say uncharacteristically miss a block? Like, he just missed a block. It's like saying, well, he uncharacteristically let a ball bounce off his hands and it went into someone else's hands as an interception. That happens. That's the game. I just think that the Raiders, they did have a chance in that game against the Bengals. I don't think that they had a chance the next week if they had won that game against Cincinnati, right? I mean, I don't see it. And maybe they do. Maybe they beat Tennessee. They're definitely not beating Kansas City. Kansas City had the Raiders' number in 2021, right? They beat the brakes off the Raiders twice. It wasn't even close. So they definitely weren't beating Kansas City. Maybe they run with Tennessee. Maybe they beat Cincinnati. That's fine. But that's really it. But, I mean, you know, uncharacteristic missed block, like that's football. Missed blocks happen. And bad things happen when you miss blocks, right? Just like you could say Derek Carr shouldn't have thrown the ball short of the end zone, to Zay Jones at the end of the game. Should have, instead of clocking the ball, should have thrown a fader out to Waller a couple times, giving him an opportunity. You know, I mean, there's so many things that we could break down about the game. Bottom line is they lost. But all throughout the season, they won all those close games. So instead of the other team saying, well, the Raiders only won because uncharacteristic, no, I mean, that's how games go. That's why they play the games. I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that, oh, well, that's why they lost was because of uncharacteristic missed block. No, that was a missed block. It was bad, and it happened. So there's that. But thank you for the text. Bottom line is the Raiders weren't a playoff team this year. They just weren't, right? They only won 6 games. There was a lot of games that they lost that they should have won, and then they would have been a playoff team. That's shoulda, woulda, coulda. There's no excuses. You've got to find ways to win those games. They found ways to win them in 2021. They didn't in 2022. So hopefully in 2023, with a much improved roster, they find a way to do it. But they've got to go and improve the roster before that happens. Thank you so much for that text. I do appreciate you. We'll close things out with a call from Nathan Glass. He's calling to talk about the NFL draft and what he thinks can happen for the Raiders. And he sees a scenario in where the Raiders can move up to number 5. This is Nathan Glass. He's a Steeler fan, but he listens to the show quite a bit. So here he is, Nathan Glass.
How you doing, Q? Nathan Glass. Just wanted to bring something to your attention that I see possibly working out in the NFL draft. I listen to your show pretty often, and I know you guys need defensive help. So I was breaking down the draft, and I was looking at it, and I was like, okay, I do see the Bears trading the number 1 pick. Okay, so if you got the Alabama quarterback going number 1, and then you got the Texans taking their quarterback with the 2nd pick, you move down to the Bears with the 3rd pick, because they traded the 1st overall. And they're going to take I see them taking Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, one or the other. But the Bears come right back with the 4th pick. And with that, I see them taking a tackle because the quarterback, Justin Fields, he was running for his life. And they need some help. And I think Broderick Jones, the tackle from Alabama, is going to test off the charts. So I think he's going to be the first lineman taken off the board. Now, this moves into the Seahawks pick, and this where I see you guys can move up. I would offer the Seahawks, I don't know how your GM would do it, but I would try to get the Seahawks number 5 pick, and either Will Anderson or Jalen Carter will be available with the number 5 pick. Because, like I said, I see 2 quarterbacks taken in the first 2. I see the Bears taking either Anderson or Carter. And then the Bears going to go for a tackle. So if you guys get the number 5 pick, it's either Carter or Anderson. And you guys need defensive help. And either one will be an asset to you guys. I mean, man. So move up there, get the number 5 pick, take either one, and also make a move in free agency. There's several guys available that could help the defense. One I was thinking of was Javon Hargrave from the Eagles. 11-sack guy this season. He could help you guys out. And I know you guys need a cornerback help, but the cornerback room is deep in this draft. I think you guys can get one in the 2nd round, maybe a guy like Cam Smith. But like I say, the cornerback room is deep. So what do you feel about that if you guys trade up to the number 5 spot to get Will Anderson or Jalen Carter? Hey, check out my call.
Thank you for the call, my man. And I'm kind of confused. You have the Bears trading down. Who are they trading with? Because you didn't mention the Colts or the Cardinals. You talked about the first 5, but the first 5 picks are the Bears, Texans, Cardinals, Colts, and Seahawks. That's the first 5. So where are the Colts and where are the Cardinals? I'm assuming if they trade down, the Bears trade down, maybe they're trading with the Colts to get a quarterback. That would make sense. And then I don't know. See, I'm really confused. I think we need more information before I can really dive into that scenario. But I'm not guaranteeing that there's going to be a defensive stud there at number 5 or number 7, depending on how it all shakes out. Like, it's so hard. It's only February to determine. We haven't seen free agency. We haven't seen anything. We haven't seen – there's always teams that trade up before the draft. We haven't seen any of that yet. So it's kind of hard to determine who's going to trade and what these players are going to – or what these teams are going to go get. I understand your concept, but you said the Bears a couple times there, so I'm not sure where the Colts or the Cardinals lie in this whole situation. So hit us back, maybe shoot us a text, and just let me know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. If so, well, it happens because, well, that's what I do at times. So thank you so much for the call. I do appreciate you. That's all I got time for on today's show. We got a text from Jason in the 304. We'll get to that tomorrow. Chuck Rader in the 512. We got that tomorrow as well. I'll be out at the Shrine Bowl Media Day today, so hopefully I'll be able to bring some good sound back from some potential prospects that maybe the Raiders can get later on in the draft coming up in the end of April. And who knows what else is going to happen, but we'll have plenty for the show tomorrow, news and notes, of course, and the Derek Carr saga continues until it doesn't. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Thanks so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the show free and available on all platforms. Now, as I close out each and every day, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.